Happy Sunday, guys. Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is the United show. This is Devil's Advocate. This is a different type of show today. We're here to talk all things Manchester United, but more or less we are here to talk about the recent, obviously, videos circulating on social media of Richard Arnold talking to Manchester United fans. And we'll also be discussing the Glazers tonight as well in terms of the valuation of Manchester United and the share price dropping down, and also the valuation of the football club. We've discussed that as well. And also, we will be chatting about the Eric Ten Hag plans for pre-season and so on and so forth. But I am joined here today by Mr. Greg Chambers and Jamie McCoy. And great little panel here today. We're going to talk all the latest things about United so far. But Greg, welcome back to the podcast. It's been quite some time since you've been on. How are you feeling today, brother? How's the form?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a while since I actually spoke about Man United, which has been quite refreshing to not have to do. But I feel like, especially over the last 24 hours, I've been more opinionated on United than anything they've sort of done. Or in the last couple of weeks, actually. I feel like there's been a lot of Man United fans overreacting, and it's in June, to a lot of things going on at the club. And I just feel like some things are ridiculous. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you back on. We've been chatting there for about an hour before it actually shows. So we've been chatting about a few things about the football club even before you were on the show tonight. So it's good to catch up. Speaking of catch-ups, we haven't seen this man on the podcast in a while either, Mr. Jamie McCoy. How are you today, Jamie?
I'm doing all right, mate. Yeah, same as Greg. Took a little bit of a sabbatical from United, which has kind of been a little bit refreshing. I don't know if I look better for it or not, but I definitely feel better for not talking about it. But yeah, well, good, mate. I've had a lovely weekend. I hope you two have had a nice weekend as well. And yeah, here we are. Let's get stuck in.
Absolutely. Glad to have both of you back. And what also feels good for me to be back on my end as well, having been hosting what shows on here in the last 12 months, really. My life has just been mental with work and other things. So it's good to get back on talking about United. And look, it's our love. So look, it's great to be back on talking about the football club. But I'm also just going to come to a couple of comments first before we dive into the conversation. Barbaro says, no, the Glazers are con men. Man United are skinned because of their greed and poor ownership. Absolutely bang on the money with that one. Victoria's Secret says, evening. And Mark says, yes, boys. Unbelievable. Some buzz. Anyway, Mark. Absolutely. Good man, Mark. But, Greg, we've been chatting in the last 24 hours in terms of the videos that circulate on social media in the last 24 hours in terms of Richard Arnold. So for people who don't know, Richard Arnold, there was a group of Manchester United fans in a local pub. There was a plan for a protest to happen towards Richard Arnold, towards the Glazers. And Richard Arnold obviously got wind of this and actually agreed to meet the Manchester United fans at the local pub to have a conversation about the football club. First of all, Greg, we've seen no communication from a CEO or the owners or anyone in a high position at the football club in the last decade, post Sir Alex. Like when it was David Gill and Sir Alex, there was transparency there. Mm-hmm. No transparency now. Until yesterday. In terms of seeing, first of all, the fan group obviously being relentless in what they're doing in terms of, putting pressure on the Glazers, putting pressure on the football club for more communication. And looks like that's after obviously coming to light as of yesterday, with Richard Arnold, though, talking to the Manchester United fans at the pub. First of all, in terms of seeing that level of transparency, what do you think about that in terms of, do you think, is he wants to kind of, I suppose, start a new journey compared to the Ed Woodward era of Manchester United when it was almost a closed shop and so there was no communication at all?
Yeah, I think he made it quite clear, a couple of things that he said yesterday, that he's not the last guy. He's not Ed Woodward. And with his first interview with Man United and when he first got the job and everything that was said, he made it quite clear that he wasn't Ed Woodward. He said that he doesn't know much about the football side of things. He doesn't want to deal with the football side of things. He doesn't know what players best suit Man United. He's there to deal with the money. And he really just reiterated that yesterday. But yesterday was the first time that a Man United official has spoke with fans face-to-face in over a decade. Biggest football club in the world has had absolutely no communication from anyone beyond the manager in over 10 years. And yesterday, Arnold he sat up in front of it and fair play to have the balls to do that, because that's not an easy thing to do. He could have quite easily done what Woodward did last year and phoned the Sun and phoned the police. And But he didn't. He said, right, let's go down, let's have this conversation, and was open and honest about it. And it's a good thing. It seems we have no reason to not trust him. I said this when he first came in, that there's no point comparing him to Woodward because he's completely different. Until he shows us that he's not that person, then we've got to take him at face value. And from my perspective, I think everything or most things he's done so far as being the CEO of Man United has been great. Like the first thing he did, his first real big decision was to get Rangnick in. And I think we can all agree that when that first happened, we were all very happy with Rangnick. I don't think there was many Man United fans that could have sort of seen what was going to happen, how badly it was going to fall off, the fact we didn't improve so much on the pitch. And now obviously he's not here going forward. No United fan could have predicted that. If you go back to when that first happened, they're like, yeah, brilliant. Things are going the right way. He's clearly worked really well or working really closely with Murtaugh to get Ten Hag in. That's another great bit of business. And from everything he said yesterday, the money's there for us to do what we need to do this summer, and it's up to John Murtaugh to do it. So I don't see how people can be comparing Woodward to Arnold. And I think yesterday just really, I think he put out a statement that he wants now to be open and transparent. But I think also Man United fans can't just threaten to go to the guy's house every time they want an answer for something as well. There's got to be that balance. This can't become the norm, but in terms of the breaking point that Man United were at, to the point where we've broken into our own stadium and things like that, this is a good first step to gaining a bit of trust back with some fans that have been hurt over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's a good way to kind of start your tenure in your new role as CEO, because I think Ed Woodward, not only did Ed Woodward not communicate like into the fans through the media, or even like, even with the fan forums, he was very, very scarce in what he done. Like, I know obviously the Manchester United Supporters Trust as well, I'm going to call them out right now. They've done jack shit in the last 10 years in terms of this Glazer ownership, in terms of what's gone on. The 1958 have gone in, however, and obviously we've seen in the last couple of months there's been protests. Obviously, members of 1958 were there yesterday, and who have been the forefront of the protests. And this is the first time we've got the CEO to come down and actually have a conversation. So fair play to the lads for that yesterday. And obviously the fact it was civil as well on that part as well. Like, look, they're able to sit down and have honest conversations about the football club. And, like, first and foremost, the fans at the end of the day, like, they're the lifeblood of the football club. And to see that, that he has come down, has respected the fans in that regard, that's good to see. And again, I agree on the point as well, Greg, that it did take balls to go down and have a conversation with the fans. Because, like, let's face it, like, we've seen, look, I know Ed Woodward, all he's done the last 10 years has been nothing so short of shocking. But, like, he never even, like, even when the fans kind of, remember the time the Flares went into his house that time, like, any man, like, would call the police.
He phoned the Sun. He didn't phone the police. He phoned the Sun. That was the first people he phoned. Like, I think that just shows the level that these are two completely different people. And as I've seen, I always said we don't know if this is true or not, but have you seen there's a lot less links and things coming out from the club in terms of transfers now Woodward's gone as well. And I know people are making links that Woodward was leaking names and things to the media to stir things up, because obviously that got Man United's popularity, notoriety. It got their names circulating, which is all money.
Social media interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I know a lot of people have said that. And Woodward used to basically he had friends in the media, and he would just leak out to the media that, okay, Man United are interested in this. We're watching this person. We're watching that person. And that's obviously gone down a lot more this summer. And I think that's why Man United fans, or a lot of Man United fans, are frustrated, because we're so used to dressing room leaks and this like, we think how our club's run and how it's spiraled in the last 5 years is the normal way to run it. We shouldn't have a clue who Man United are talking to, whether there's interest, who's on a long list, who's on a short list. We shouldn't. We just shouldn't have a clue. It's not the way to run business. It's not the way to run a football club. It's a way to drive up prices of players. That's the only way. Man United are interested, and everyone in the world knows that Man United are interested in that player. Suddenly the price goes up. It's just not the way to conduct business. And yet I just think what Arnold did yesterday, like you said, just making a statement, just being bold and honest and open with everyone. Because he could have said things that a lot of people didn't like yesterday, and there were some bits where he wasn't quite maybe as clear as he needed to be, and it could have turned sour. But he didn't go down there with security. He didn't sit them in
There was
it didn't look
security
like, around the place, yeah, but he didn't go down with like personal security sat with them. They weren't in like they were just in a beer garden. It was a nice conversational chat, and he sounded like a fan. It was the first person that actually sounded like a fan since Ollie. Like for all his flaws, he did sound like a fan because he was, and that's sometimes just what you need. And to have that behind the manager as well, I think it makes a big difference.
100%, and it did. I think again, he could have went down and he could have been condescending. And he could have gave like, I suppose, like some of the answers. Like to be fair, there was answers he did kind of tiptoe around, but the fact he went down, he did speak, and like again, that's something where we haven't seen that level of transparency in quite some time. Jamie, obviously, like with Richard Arnold, and he's setting a new role. And like to be fair, I communicated him with a couple of weeks ago via email. I aired a lot of frustrations about the football club. And to be fair to Richard Arnold, he has been very communicative. He looks like he does reply to every fan that does email him. I'm not going to throw his email address here out live on show, by the way. If anyone's in the comments looking for it, it's not going to happen. But he does seem to be like wanting to make a change in terms of the way the football club is run, not just from like a PR standpoint, not just from, I suppose, a social media interaction standpoint. But looks like in terms of being involved, in terms of the way that the structure of the football club seems to be changing. We've seen, obviously, he wants to step away from the football side of running and things, and looks like he wants John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher, Eric Ten Hag kind of on the football side of things this moment in time. And that's obviously a massive change compared to what we had when it was just Woodward and then obviously going like Matt Judge and Joe Glazer. Kind of obviously the decision at the end signs off the deals. That's Joe Glazer, obviously still. But in terms of the structure of the football club, looks like he wants to stay on more the kind of commercial side almost and leave it to the likes of John Murtagh, Darren Fletcher, and Eric Ten Hag. When you look at that, do you have more confidence that like in terms of this football club, the way it can be ran? We all know this isn't a quick fix by any means, and like look, there's certain other things at the ownership that we still need to talk about later on the show. But if you're looking at in terms of like internal structure that we do have and within the football club, like do you think like this is a lot better set up for one, and B, in the short term, do you think that we can see a bit of progress and a bit of rebuilding in these next, like, let's be honest, 12 to maybe 18 months, that we can maybe see some bit of a difference, and not even just like on the pitch, but also off the pitch?
I think he's looked at the structure and the tenure under Woodward and wanted to do the complete opposite. And I think yesterday is a big sort of plus point in comparison to what we've dealt with Woodward. I mean, there was absolutely zero communication there. Like Greg was saying, there was leaks coming. You were like, where's the stories coming from? He was trying to conduct transfer business when that just wasn't his role. He didn't need to be doing that. He was a lot more hands-on in a negative way. I think Arnold's looked at that situation and thought, you know what, I can do this a little bit differently. I think yesterday is definitely a point of he wants to be more communicational. Whether people read them transcripts yesterday on Twitter and didn't buy it or thought it was a positive or not, at least it was some sort of form of communication. I think that's the way I took it anyway. Because you can read anything on Twitter. Was it exactly what he said? I seen the video when he was being recorded and what he was saying there. But other than that, I didn't. There's loads of other things come out of that meeting where it was, oh, he said this. When did he say it? I don't know. You just got to go off of what you're reading on Twitter. But there's definitely obviously a line of communication there that he wants to reach with the fans, which has got to be a positive because that's been non-existent with our club for years. We obviously know the hierarchy of the club. We're not keen on them, to say the least. But I feel like he's trying to put the right people in place and think, do you know what? I ain't qualified to do that. I think he come out with a quote yesterday saying, what do you want me to buy the players, didn't he? And we know how that's gone in the past. And I thought that's a bang on comment. And to be fair to him, I mean, Greg stole my words, but it takes some balls. Do you know what I mean? It does take some balls to go down there in front of some of our fan base that's actively trying to get the Glazers out of the club in a very forceful manner, doing obviously different things which we'll touch on later, so I won't go into it too much. But that group are definitely pushing. And by the sounds of what he was saying yesterday, they're getting somewhere. They are causing a little bit of an issue, which
And
is
quite rightly
great
so.
from
Quite
from our
rightly so.
perspective. That's a positive, ain't it? I mean, none of us sitting here want the Glazers in charge, do we? Let's be real. So they're trying to make noise, and they are making noise from, as I say, I keep saying it, but the transcript of what I seen was said yesterday. And I feel like he understands his role. Whether he's a football man or not, he definitely understands his role as a CEO. He definitely wants to be in the background on the commercial side, that's what he's paid for, you know. So he's put people in place who he trusts. They might be Glazer people. Well, they are, let's be honest. Fletcher's probably quite clicky with them. Murta's one of their boys. But you've got to just trust the process that they're trying to learn from their mistakes. And I think if that's the case, it is going to take time. And I feel like that's half of the problem. I think our fans kind of want a quick fix, and it just isn't going to be that. I'm one as well. I'm known constantly on Twitter about where's our ambition and stuff. But the thing is, it's going to stop smiling, Greg. Give me stick all the time. But I'm quite raw, you know. I'm not very politically correct when it comes to Twitter. So if anyone does follow me, just ignore me some of the time. But it's just, you just want to see your club ambitious, you know. But I appreciate we're not a City or Liverpool or even a Tottenham or Chelsea. We're not that organised at the moment, and it is going to take time. And sometimes I need a reality check with that. But when you see sort of certain things being put in place and more, not going to say footballing people, but like sort of people that can deal with that side of the club, you've got to appreciate that at least they're trying to fix something, you know, because they could easily just keep going the way it was. And it was a broken system, wasn't it? To the point where the hostility of it was just not right. And the fact that he went and bought the lads a few beers and tried to sort of, what I read from some of the comments, they wasn't exactly very friendly towards the guy. Do you know what I mean? They were very forceful with what they were asking, and rightfully so. Like, sometimes as fans, we want a certain question answered. We don't want to go around the question. We want an actual answer. And by the sounds of things, he tried his best. There's a lot of stuff on social saying it was all like PR spin. It was all the answers we were expecting and stuff like that. But when you're sitting in front of, I don't know how many guys were there, but there was a group of guys there, and you're on your own, so to speak, having a quiet beer in a pub garden, you're gonna have to just answer with what you feel. And if that's not what the guys wanted to hear or the fan base wanted to hear, that's fair enough. But at least he's given us something, and I think that's the positive to take out of it, that barrier's been broken, which has to be a positive.
Yeah.
There's communication now, whether it's what you want to hear or not. Communication's better than 10, 15 years of what we've had. So,
yeah. I was going to say, but they can say it's like PR spin and things like that. But the reason it feels like PR spin is because we all know it anyway. We didn't learn anything new yesterday. It was just nice to hear it come from someone else. The reason it feels like PR spin is because saying that last year was a shit show is because it was a shit show. The reason it's PR spin saying that the money's there available for Frankie de Jong is because we're Man United and we're the biggest club in the world and we earn stupid amounts of money. And if we want a player and a manager wants a player, we often get the player. That's why it feels like PR spin. You didn't come out and tell us that anything that we didn't already know. The important bit yesterday wasn't the actual information. It was the fact of who it came from. It was the fact that there was a break in that there was that communication made, the first bit of communication we've had in so long. That just needed to be done. And I didn't understand so many people outraged about it being recorded. And these are the same people that defended us breaking into our own stadium a year ago. I don't see how you can think literally breaking in and vandalizing a football stadium is acceptable when you're upset at the owners, but secretly recording someone that's chosen to be out there and have a conversation isn't. But yeah, that I think that's the reason it feels like PR spin is because no one listened to that conversation and got, oh, Man United were shit last season, were they? Well, Man United are in a mess, are they? It's not new. We know it. We know it all. We just need to actually move on and deal with it. But it was just nice to hear it come from someone from the inside and to hear exactly what they thought. And because they're in a position of power as well, it makes you feel like, wow, so people do actually care. Because sometimes, especially in the last 10 years, it's genuinely felt like the Glazers just dragging Man United fans along for the ride. and they don't care. As long as they're making money, then they didn't care where the club ended up. But to me, anyway, it seemed like Arnold genuinely cared if Man United were sat fourth or if Man United were winning Premier Leagues. And yeah, it was just nice to hear. I don't know what you thought, Keane, in terms of how you thought it was, but
yeah, like look, no worries, pal, no worries. Like in terms of this, like I was actually asleep when all this broke. Like I seen our group chat. I was conked. Like I was working mental shifts the last 6 weeks. So like I had yesterday I just had a shattered. I said, look, I need a rest. I rested. That was fine. I woke up then thinking, like, grand. I'll pick up the phone now and see what madness I might have to miss in the group chat. Do you know what I mean? As you do. And I seen people saying Richard Arnold been recorded. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, like what is this?
What's he done?
Yeah, what the fuck's going on? So like I picked up the phone obviously and went onto Twitter and I seen everything. And again, I was happy to see like obviously a few of the people who are there who I've actually communicated with on Twitter before. The couple of lads that were there, and fair play to them. Like I think it's great to see that the fans are still putting up relentless pressure, but also as well, like you've seen, like I think from my perspective, I can see some of the arguments for the video being recorded, right? I can see some of that, right? People might say that's going to end the line of communication, right? I get that. I get that while it could if the Glazers put the nip in the bud and said, right, look, you're not allowed to talk to fans. Right.
Yeah.
But if the lads, let's say, put out a Twitter thread, right, and said, look, this is what Arnold said, no one would have believed them, right? No one would have believed that they were talking to him. And the same people said we would have. Like, I'll just say this. These are the same people who question things that come out by journalists. So why wouldn't they question an average fan saying that they met Richard Arnold in a pub and they got this, that, and the other bit of information off him? They would have questioned it. So people taking the moral high ground about the recordings, I can quite honestly say with regards to it, I have no problem with. I can see like both sides of the argument, but like at the end of the day, like you're in a public place, you're in a public setting,
yeah.
Like, and he's
also not stupid. Like he's met with a fan group based off of Twitter. He knows how social media works, especially Man United, and how the fan base has been. He knows exactly that whether it's videoed or whether it's going to be a thread and a transcript of what's being said, he knows it's going to be out there. Like, I think people are so determined to find something shocking and horrifying in it. There's just nothing there. Like, okay, maybe releasing a video against his will is a little bit odd, but it's not like they're in his house.
What about this is the way I put at it. Like, what about the Glazers taking dividends out of the club against the club's fans? Well,
yeah, exactly. Or like what I said, like the same people tweeting about. That's why I got annoyed on Twitter last night. Is because the same people tweeting that releasing the video is shocking and against and shouldn't ever be done. But the same people last year that backed us breaking into our own stadium and getting a game called off, and throwing flares at TV presenters and stuff like that. And I'm like, are you like serious? You've got to have a point where if you think one of these things is acceptable, then both of these things are acceptable, because they're not.
Both are acceptable. I think, like, look, the fans were at a breaking point last season when the Super League happened. And to be quite honest, like from my point of view, like when I seen the protests happen, I said on this podcast in 2021 that I could understand why the fans broke into the stadium that time. Greg, I was consistent on that at that time.
Yeah.
I said from that point of view that I could understand when the fans did break into the stadium, because at the end of the day, the Glazers have done so much for this football club and his fans, and they've let it dry that some fans had enough, and I can completely accept that. At the same token, I can accept yesterday that the video got recorded, because at the end of the day, again, if the same people said they met Richard Arnold and they got this, that, and the other from him, and then they said it on Twitter, people would have questioned that as well. So that
it would never got as much traction. We wouldn't be talking about it because it would just be someone else having a ramble on Twitter. The fact that the reason it got so much traction, the reason that people now stand up, oh wow, it's because there was a video. Like, things have got to be done. I don't care if it's not the most ethical way to do it. If it's going to get progress and things are going to move forward. No one was hurt. He's not said anything abusive to a player or a member of staff or the Glazers or anything. Nothing's been said that's.
Well, apart from Ed Woodward, apart from throwing him under the bus spot.
Yeah, but who gives a fuck? He's not involved. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But he's not come out and gone, no, that player's shit. or he was rubbish or anything. Like, you know what I mean? He's not put his foot in it in any way. I don't think. I just think people were really, really overreacting to the fact that it was leaked.
Yeah, but then look, that's social media. Everyone has their preferences, and look, this is the way I look at it. Like, if people want to be angry about it, that's fine. If people want to be happy about it, that's fine. But look, my personal preference is I'm right in the middle. I think, like, look, I can see from Richard Arnold's point of view, from like a privacy standpoint, yes, I can see why if he was angry about it slightly. But at the end of the day, look, we need more lines of communication. The fans need to know more information, and we got that yesterday from a wider perspective. But I just want to kind of move away from kind of the Richard Arnold situation yesterday, because I suppose at that moment in time, do we believe him? At this moment in time, I'll say yes, because I'll take it on face value. But for me, actions just speak louder than words. It's all well and good saying what you said yesterday, but I think you have to look at it now and you have to like put that into action. Like, you're on about getting stadium redeveloped and getting investment in the football club. Let's hope we can get that. Let's get the training ground redone. Joe, let's put investment into the academy. Let's get investment into the women's team. Joe, obviously, look, transfers are transfers. Like, look, I'm kind of sick about talking about them. So it's whatever, investment in the first team, whatever. But like, it's all well and good saying that. Look, I want to see progress, not just on the first team, but I want to see the club like be a modern football club again. Because I think this football club, we are a bit behind. Look, we are a bit behind City. We are a bit behind Liverpool. You can even say we're a bit behind Chelsea and Spurs at the minute in terms of quality of player that we have, right? Look, whatever about that. But like, I think this football club just needs to start acting like a big football club again. And I think that's the most important thing. But look, kind of piggybacks me into kind of my next topic is in terms of the Glazers. Because me and Mark talked to Kieran Maguire at the start of the week, football finance expert. If you haven't watched that podcast, immediately after you watch this, jump over to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk YouTube channel. We did a fantastic interview with Kieran Maguire, and he gave us a lot of insight in towards Manchester United's financial situation and why we are where we are. But like Greg, I talked to Kieran Maguire the other day, and one thing he did say in terms of like United share price has dropped massively. It hasn't been this bad since we went onto the market, like the share market.
Yeah.
It came out there a couple of days ago, Greg, that Manchester United's valuation in the space of 12 months dropped down by 1.3 billion. Now that's a massive drop in valuation in that space of time. When you look at clubs like Chelsea getting sold for 4 billion and Man United's share price drops down by 1.3, that's very alarming. When you look at United's on the field results, Greg, obviously that's going to have an effect on obviously what gets pumped into the team, but also it affects sponsorships and it affects, other things in the football club in terms of revenue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think this, like, I suppose, closed shop mentality that Glazers have ultimately created this football club in terms of it doesn't matter if you win football matches, we're still going to rake in the money?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's catching up to the Glazers now, considering sponsors are getting tired? Lack of Champions League football seems to be kicking us in the stones right now as well. Like, do you think this mentality is eventually going to catch up with the Glazers? And you consider Jim Radcliffe's after putting in a bit, he put it in a bit for Chelsea, ultimately failed, but he showed the interest there. And you see Chelsea going for 4.5 billion. Look at the way our valuation has dropped by 1.3.
Yeah.
Do you think this closed shop mentality that Glazers have is going to catch up on them eventually? Because when you look at the statistics and you look at the how the club's gone down in the valuation, all the facts, all the figures are saying that the Glazers are running this football club into kind of, I suppose, a dark age. And it looks like at this moment in time, the longer they stay at this football club, it's actually going to get, like, and from a financial standpoint, it could get worse before it gets better, and actually could affect maybe people like Richard Arnold's job who are trying their best. Ultimately, they could all fail.
Yeah, it could, and there's a reason that the two other sports that the Glazers are heavily involved in are the NFL, and they've just got involved in the IPL, is because there's that exclusivity into it. You pay into it and you're in it. You're guaranteed to be in it every year. And the way this Americanization and the way they want to run every sort of business that they have doesn't suit football. It certainly doesn't suit European football. And that's why they want the Super League. They want that guarantee that you don't have to be one of the best. best 2-3 teams in the world, because you're guaranteed to play the top 12 or whatever it is, however many it was going to be. You're guaranteed to play them every year. That's what he wanted. That's what they wanted. That's why they wanted it, is because they didn't have to try and they were just raking all the money. The reason the Man United share price has gone down is because we're crap. We're rubbish to watch. We don't have we don't have greatly talented footballers. Our squad's poor. We're not winning games. We're not in the biggest competitions. If you're not in the biggest competitions, you're not attracting the same players. You're not getting the same amount of sponsors, and it's just one big spiral. So they either need to really, in the next probably 10, 12 years, they need to either accept that they need to invest money into the team to have us winning again, which I will. For all the things that the Glazers do, I will never have a go at them for not investing in the team. I've said this many times to you, Keane. I don't think the Glazers give a fuck who comes in the door in terms of the actual player's name. I think they just care about the figure on the sheet and whether it's worth it. They couldn't care whether the guys from Scotland and worth 80 million or the guys from the USA and worth 15,000. They don't care. They want it to work on their sheet and match their money and match what they're putting out.
To be fair, owner investment, to be fair, any money that's been pumped in, like it's been generated from the football club. They're the lowest owner investment of the Premier League when you consider how much
money the club has. Absolutely, but in terms of like transfers and actually getting players in, I don't think any Man United fan could sit for the last 10 years and be like, beside Newcastle, we've had we never get any players. We've had the worst track record of getting any players that we want and spending money in a transfer window, because it's just not true. The fact is what we've bought's been shit. It's the fact we've let people like Ed Woodward run our transfer business who don't have a clue. And it all, of course, all stems back to the Glazers. And they need, so I think in the next 10, 12 years, they need to accept that, okay, we're going to invest money in getting the right people in and making it, like you said, a modern football club again. Or in the next 10 to 12 years, as they start to get towards the sort of latter end of their lives, obviously they're quite old guys, that it's got to be a case of what can we get from it? Can we sell up? Will we sell up? Because Man United will always still attract a buyer. Like there would never be a case where Man United would be available to buy and we wouldn't have the same amount of bids, if not more, than Chelsea. So yeah, I just think I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think they will try and work their way out of it, but I think there was a massive reason why they jumped in with Sheikh Mansour and bought that cricket team in India, is because in the IPL there's exclusivity and there's so much ad revenue and so much money in that. They just want guaranteed money. They don't want to have to work for it. And I think it might be getting to the stage now where Man United's a bit too much work for them. And if the share price continues to drop, then I think the chances of a sale are more and more likely.
I think with the share drop as well, and I think that how the sponsors have been targeted as well, and that could be massively like look how, like, to be fair, if I know, Greg, you've had your own thoughts and kind of some of the protests have gone on and you haven't agreed with everything, but I've been keeping track of kind of what 1958 are doing, and their online campaign towards the sponsors has actually been quite short of remarkable. Like in terms of what they've done to all them sponsors on Trustpilot and things like that, where they've gone to, like, let's say 4 stars down to 2.5 or 1.5. Like they're targeting sponsors through all ad revenues. They're targeting them on their customer support. They're targeting them. So like one thing I said last year, one thing they're doing is they're filling up their baskets on their online shopping and they're keeping them baskets there. That costs the company money. Like they're doing all different things. And I think when you look at that, eventually that takes an adverse effect, because if Adidas are taking a big massive kick up the arse from United fans, and eventually Adidas are going to say to the Glazers, like, look, like say to the football club, they won't be talking directly to the Glazers, but they'll be saying to whoever's like head of commercial, they'll be like, look, why aren't the results going right in the pitch? We sponsor you because you're the biggest club in the world. Like, why aren't you acting like the biggest club in the world? That does take its effect. Like you look at, like, even match day revenue has gone down massively. Now that's fair play to many people. They're not buying out at the mega store. They're not like, to be fair, I think buying Old Trafford these days is the beer. Like £2-3 for a beer. Greg, you know that yourself. £2-3 for a beer on a match day. But fair play if people do that. But like people are spending less and less on official merchandise. Like any jersey I get, any piece of club gear I get it either. Well, if you heard my connections lately, I'm either getting it for free or I'm getting it off for a very like cheap price. And I'm not buying through the football club, and I'm not the only one who does that. Jamie's done that. Greg, you've done it. Many other different fans have not buying through the football club. And essentially, I think more people need to do that. And obviously, you will have tourist fans who will go into the mega store and will buy it because it's their first time going to Old Trafford. Like, that's their decision. If they want to do that, that's fine. That's not my personal preference. So anyone else is here, personal preference in terms of that. But to be fair, like the worldwide fan base are all doing their part at the minute. Match going fans are doing their part at the minute. And I think this is where like the football club needs kind of maybe needs to take this financial kicking. So maybe the Glazers do need to leave. Now, look, to be fair, if that means that the performances on the pitch are probably going to maybe stagnate because the football club can't invest as much, then look, I'm willing to take the short-term pain for a long-term result in terms of...
It can't get worse than last year.
Well,
It can't. No, because not only were we like poor in terms of results, we were shit to watch. Is like even if we're like Arsenal last season, I would take like 2 seasons ago, I would take it like losing games or drawing games, but actually being good to watch. I would take that any day in life. But last season we were so poor. At no point did it ever look we were going to score goals and win games, and then we just did it. Like, yeah, it just can't get worse than last year. I hope anyway.
Well, look, that's left to be determined. To be fair, if we don't replace some of the players we did have in the squad, and we have, let's say, McTominay, Fred, and Pereira in midfield, it might be a different conversation. But look, we'll talk about that in like later podcasts during the season. Even though pre-season Pereira is my man, I'm telling you now, pre-season Pereira isn't my man.
You can go Everton.
Reese in the comments now. Reese is just watching this, absolutely seething, and I just brought up Andreas. Yeah, but even Tony quite rightly says, well, Chelsea wasn't 4 billion, it was 2.5 with a pledge to invest 1.75 billion into team infrastructure. That's fair.
So 4 billion.
With the way our valuation has gone down, it's probably going to be something like that as well, considering the debt as well on top of like what.
But if it's a guarantee to invest money, then they've pledged 4 billion. So I get that the club wasn't sold for that, but would they have got it if they hadn't guaranteed the 1.75 billion in team infrastructure? Probably not.
And the fact that Roman did put the 1.3 million there as well.
Yeah. I get what they're saying, but it is it's 4 billion. That's what it would be. Because if they turned out to buy for 2.5, they wouldn't have got it.
Yeah. And Reese says in the comments as well, pre-season pissed him. I got him. Guys, I got him. I absolutely got him. But yeah, Jamie, like, we've had a detailed conversation in terms of like how this has gone down with the Glazers, in terms of, like, you remember last year the Super League happened when the reporter from Sky News went to try to interview Avi Glazer, and fucking shit haircut on him, didn't answer a fucking word that was said, basically. And again, it's been radio silence again the last 12 months in the Glazers. They pledged, obviously, the fan share scheme will be up and running, and to the Manchester United Supporters Trust. We've been hearing piss about that. We've been hearing nothing about the fan share scheme. And Joe Glazer is there talking about Ronaldo return, like Ronaldo being at the football club, and he got Ronaldo's age wrong when he signed for the football club. Like, when you look at this just overall like situation with these, I won't call them owners, I'll call them parasites. Like where do you begin with this? Because they're taking the piss out of the football club, they're taking the piss out of the fans. Our fans are probably like let me be brutally honest about this. Now, there's a lot of like fans on social media, like we can all be guilty of it. We might give like a very poor opinion, and there's a lot of people on social media give massively poor opinions, and I'm not going to name them because, like, look, they're not worth my time on my own. But quite rightly, we probably have the most loyal fan base when you talk about the match day support. Like, we always have a full stadium, or I think our away fans are probably the best in the country. Like, they're always loud and they're always giving the team support. Even as Greg said, we were probably one of the worst teams to watch last season. But like our away fans were just absolutely amazing. Like, we're getting beat 4-0 by Brighton. You think we're in Old Trafford? Like, it was just the fans were like brilliant on the day. Do you think, like, when you look at these owners, like, how can they sleep at night, knowing how I know how they're sleeping? They're getting billions into their bank account. They're loving that.
Yeah.
But, like,
seems pretty cushy.
Yeah, they sleep very cushy, but like
They've got a comfy bed.
Yeah, well, they can't get a decent pair of clothes or a haircut between the two of them. To be fair, but
haircuts are
like,
I can't
when
knock
you
anyone's
actually,
haircut
like,
when my hair's receding like this, Keane, so I'll just move on from that one.
when you actually look at like this ownership, and is it a surprise that our fan base is at its wits end at the minute? And we're seeing protests at the ground. We nearly seen a protest at Richard Arnold's house yesterday before he went to the pub yesterday. Like, can you understand why this fan base is just at its wits end, and the drastic measures are being taken?
I think it's difficult to talk about, isn't it? Like, because there's so much wrong with it that you don't have the time to sort of discuss it on here. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that's wrong, and to be honest, like, when you say that the age of Ronaldo wrong, and I don't think they care, mate. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, I think half of that family generally don't give a shit about what happens at the club, and they're just interested in the revenue streams. And I think that's obvious to us as fans that that's the most important thing. Like, everybody, obviously, Ronaldo's a good example to use. They knew what they were doing with Ronaldo, man. They're not stupid, you know what I mean? Like, they knew that we were going to get hyped up. I mean, me and you were nearly crying on the phone, Keane, when he signed. Do you know what I mean?
Man,
like,
we
were all buzzing.
That
And we
24 hours, by the way, was just insane. From being,
we'll say I called it.
Yeah, well, he did call it, but like, to be fair, then 24 hours, like, I remember, I was posting a video on Twitter, like, of the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows thing, where how dare you stand where he stood, like, in terms of Ronaldo and Old Trafford, and he's going to sign up for City and that. Like, I remember, like, I was saying, like, he's had to ruin his legacy. He's an absolute prick. He's this and that. Then, like, I tweeted then, like, with Dave Forrest, like, look, come back for one last dance. Old Trafford is waiting at Stretford End, awaits, and she's done that. Then 24 hours were fucking mental. I was playing fucking Coming Home, I think, on fucking repeat for about 2 weeks, and during that international break. And then he scored against Ireland. But anyway, like, in terms of, like, back on the Glazers, like, it's not good.
They knew what they were doing, didn't they? Like, they're not, for all we criticize them and we very much dislike them. I'm not going to say the word hate, because I just don't like that word. But
I'd say
they're not stupid, are they? They're not stupid people, like, and it's like you say, one of them was asked, what's the transfer budget? And he was like, well, we've always spent money. And that's the one thing that you can't criticize them, but it's how they spend their money. It's who they trust to give that money. It's they've always went down the route of, they've got managers in that, I mean, everybody was buzzing with Van Gaal when he came in, but he was probably past his managerial best. But he done well with the Netherlands, so we were all buzzing because the flying Van Persie header, and everyone was loving Holland in that tournament. And I generally thought we were going to get a sort of prime manager, but he wasn't quite sort of shrewd enough in the transfer window. Whether he was allowed to get his main targets or not, we'll never know.
He's stopping us getting our current targets now as well.
Yeah, I know he is, which is interesting. And then Jose was, I mean, I like Jose. I'm not going to sit here and knock him. I do like him. But he kind of didn't really click at Man U. His football wasn't that great. He was another one, didn't get given his targets. And when you're bringing a manager in and you're not allowing them to go in the market and sign the players that they want, whether you agree to it or not, but it's like Greg was saying earlier, there always has to be a financial benefit from the Glazers. They'll look at Jerome Boateng and think, nah, I don't want him. Like, that doesn't, how's he going to make me money? Is he going to sell the shirts? Yeah. Is someone going to, why don't we go and buy X, Y, and Z? Because they'll sell shirts, they're younger, there's more sell-on value for them. I think they're looking at stuff like this. And this is when we're going to find out, because in my opinion, and I know you've got your thoughts on Ollie. I know you're very pro Ollie Keane, and you give me stick about it all the time with the Mackay out stuff. So I'm going to be very quiet on Ollie, because it died down, this Mackay out stuff. But like, they give him money and trusted him when I'm not going to sit here and slate the guy. I love Solskjaer as a player, but I never thought he was right managerial wise. I always thought it was going to peak and he got backed. He bought the wrong players, in my opinion, which is by the by now. I'm not sitting here and blaming Ollie, but they give him that trust. So I want them to give. They threw Ranić under the bus. He was an easy scapegoat. The difference with Ranić is he exposed them, and when you expose the unexposable, you get the chop for it. And this is the thing with Arnold as well. He's put his balls on the line and being blunt and being brave and says, look, I'm not happy with the current situation either. And I put on my Twitter last night, be careful, because Ranić got the sack for that. Do you know what I mean? And I never went against Ranić.
Do you think he did, though?
I'm pretty sure he did.
I don't think he did.
Arnold,
I think
Arnold confirmed yesterday.
Came in and was just like,
Arnold confirmed yesterday, talking to the fans, that Ranić wasn't sacked.
Oh,
that
okay,
Ranić, the club didn't think that Ranić could do consultancy and Austria, and they both came to.
I just think Ten Hag came in and just thought, I don't like any of your ideas. I don't agree with you on what you want, and there's no point disagreeing for 2 years when we could get rid now.
Yeah.
Like,
the reason why I'm bringing up the old
that first interview was like, I don't care. I've got my ideas. This is what I want to do. And apparently Ten Hag's so meticulous on how he wants things done. Like, you've heard Steve McLaren talk about him. It doesn't surprise me that he didn't want a third party involved. Like, that wouldn't surprise me if he came in, they had one conversation, and Ten Hag's like, but you know, because that's not what I want. And I don't think Ten Hag's the sort of person to be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, we'll take some of what I want and some of what you want. I think Ten Hag would have just been like, no, this is my plan. I'm going to do it my way, and I don't think you suit what way I want to do things. I just don't think they agreed. And rather than disagree for 2 years, just get rid.
There always has to be something in it for an American, especially with sport. There has to be a bigger plan for that.
Yeah.
You can't just buy something, an asset, as they would call them. We call them players, and there not be no sort of sell on or something, or there's no way of making money. And that's what I say. The reason why I've spoke about all three managers, as I say, I wasn't digging any of them at all. I feel like the reason why I'm speaking to them is this is the first time that United have went out and got an elite manager, in my opinion, like someone that has a reputation in world football for being a top manager and an elite, like sort of ready to go to the next level manager. And it seems at the moment that they're not sort of pushing, like they're not pushing him to sort of have the same backing as maybe Solskjaer sort of thing. So which time will tell with that we were told yesterday the money's there. So if it is, that's great. And we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure we're going to get signings and we're going to be active in the market, although I rant on Twitter all the time about it. It will happen, but I think the issue now is players are looking at United and they're looking at the whole scope and they're thinking, I don't fancy that. They're not in the Champions League. There's toxicity in the fan base, the owners. It's all just a negative. From a player perspective, if I was an elite agent with a top young player at the moment, I would be advising him against going to United. And I feel like there's players in the market that we could sign. Rafinha is a prime example. Not Vitinha, sorry, from Porto. Rafinha. On about. If you're trying to tell me Bruno and Ronaldo couldn't have got him, if United were willing to pay the same price as PSG, would Ronaldo not be able to talk him into coming to Old Trafford? I'm pretty sure he would have, you know.
Yeah,
but what we
I don't
in the
think
market
personal terms would be an issue.
No, it wouldn't be. And I'm pretty sure the captain of Portugal and probably someone he idolises, and Bruno Fernandes as well, another top Portuguese player who he plays international football with, would they not be able to have a little phone call, Ronaldo, no, just to get him? Do you know what I mean?
Was one of the people who rang Ronaldo that time, to be fair.
Yeah. And what Greg said earlier when he said, I don't think we know what's going on, which is a positive, because everybody who's linking us with Vitinha, I mean, Romano said we weren't after him. Another agent, I can't pronounce the guy's name.
Jonathan Schlager said we were.
Yeah, he said we were in for him, and like, who do you believe? Do you know what I mean? I'm more on the side of probably Fabrizio because he doesn't get much wrong, but we don't know, and we are going to sign players, but it's like the players want to come to United. We're a massive club. But on the field at the moment, I don't think we're that appealing. And I think that's half of the problem. And we're seeing clubs that are the finished article, like the layers of the cake are built at Man City and Liverpool, and they can go and buy £100 million player like Darwin because they've got the rest of it around them already. they can go and blast their budget on one player, whereas we can't afford to do that. But it's the whole picture at Man United at the moment is just like looking like at a painting with loads of water over it, and you can't make out what the picture is. And it's like, are we going to get a clear vision of what the plan is? And are we going to sort of bring De Jong in this week? Everybody's saying it's going to be this week because the dividends payments are coming out. It wouldn't surprise me. I generally think they sit round and plan these things and think, you know what, we'll take away the pressure of the dividends coming out. We'll give them something nice. And I think that's how American people do work in business. Like, it's no secret that they got Brady. You know, Tom Brady was the golden boy of NFL. I don't know nothing about NFL, so I'm not going to get into that. But I know he's the boy. Well, he was the boy. I don't know if he is now. But Ronaldo was the boy, wasn't he? And it's like that shiny trophy. But the thing is, we brought Ronaldo and put him on the top of a lump of shit, whereas City have gone out and put Haaland on a lovely massive cream cake. Do you know what I mean? And it's all lovely and it looks great, and you've got the little cherry on the top.
Sprinkles on top of the cake for you.
Yeah, they were hoping Ronaldo was going to do the impossible and he was going to be enough. And the reality is, at top level elite English football, you can't get away with that. And McFred's a prime example of why you can't get away with it. And the lack of investment in the right players, and given the money's never been an issue, but you've got to go out and spend the money wisely on the right players and look at the players' backgrounds, study their injury records, like basic stuff that I do on Football Manager. So why can't they do it in real life? Do you know what I mean? And I feel like now, and bringing Arnold back up, the whole structure is starting to change, and maybe there's a different approach to the way United are going to go about it. And maybe we've just got to be patient and let it play out. And in August the 31st, we might be sitting here with Eriksen in, with De Jong in, with the boy from Feyenoord in at left back, Anthony in, and we might be like, we've got a pretty decent team. I'm quite excited to go to the Brighton game. And we'll all have optimism. But it's like when you see everybody else strengthening, you're doing nothing. It's hard to just be positive, but I presume you've just got to be a bit patient, and that's big coming from me because I'm the least patient guy when it comes to this sort of thing. But I don't know. Hopefully it's changing, you know, like for the better, because like Greg said, it can't get any worse footballing wise on last season. So, and the whole structure has to change anyway. And I mean, we speak quite a lot off of show anyway, Keane, and we've both said that, haven't we? It needs to change, like the way they're going about things. They need to be going for players that other teams ain't going for now. They need to be looking in different ponds because they can't compete for the elite level players at the moment because we're just not at that stage footballing wise. So, yeah, I'm going on now, so I'm going to stop. Someone's mentioned Fulham. No, you did so well at Fulham. That's class.
Someone's mentioned Jamie's career mode, so we won't get into that. That's a show in itself. His John Fleck obsession. But anyway... Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. Like, look, it's when you see like all the different X's and O's and how this football club has been ran, I think it all starts from the top. And people say, yes, managers been given money. Jose was not given his targets, especially after coming second in the league. He didn't get the centre back he needed. He didn't get the defense. He didn't get the midfielder he needed. Fred was like his fifth or sixth choice, and he got Lee Grant. Like, enough said about that. Then like Solskjaer, when he wanted Haaland, Bellingham, and Jack Grealish, he got Donny van de Beek, Edison Cavani, and who was the other player? Igalo, yeah. Like, you know, like that's who he got that time. Van Gaal, I dare to say, when he wanted a team full of technical players to play possession, he didn't want Morgan Schneiderlin. Do you know what I mean? In midfield, he probably
he did have a plan to play with Enzo Insigne in centre midfield though. So I'd ideally not like to see that work, but. I think we say always summer where he wanted Bellingham, Haaland, and Grealish. I think the only one that like was actually achievable then was Grealish because Bellingham and Haaland both decided no. Like Bellingham visited Old Trafford and was like, nah. He visited Carrington and was like, yeah, no thanks. I'll go to Dortmund. And I think Haaland did the same thing.
Haaland wanted to go in the December. So if you look at that calendar year, Haaland would have met Ollie and said yes. Glazers said no. Now, albeit we did sign Bruno and we hung our hat and Haaland would be there in the summer. Obviously, January ended. Haaland goes to Dortmund at that time. And then obviously we get Donny van de Beek, which because Villa stayed up and they wanted 80 million. If Villa went down because that ghost goal situation, would have got Grealish for 40. We probably would have got Grealish if Villa went down.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, I think if you look at all these little things, you look at like even Mourinho not getting certain players. I don't know, like Mourinho probably did want Paul Pogba at the time.
I think Mourinho's the most egregious one. Like, I think
Yeah.
Mourinho had a genuine case where he's a top manager. He just finished second, which was the best we'd done. We were screaming for a centre-back. He'd just been given a new contract and then wasn't given a centre-back. Like, I think that's the most egregious one. I think with the other ones, there was other factors at play. Like you said, if Villa had gone down, we probably have Grealish right now. And there's a couple other factors. But yeah, I think Mourinho was the one where you're like, they just didn't spend for whatever reason. They gave Mourinho a new contract and then didn't give him money to spend. Someone believed they had the right to tell Jose Mourinho he didn't need a centre back.
Like, there was no football people on the board. And like, I don't know, was it Woodward or Judge or whoever it was at the time said, no, you can't have Alderweireld at the time, who was one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League at the time. And you can't have Jerome Boateng, which, fair, he did have a bit of an injury record, but he was still solid. He'd still give you a solid, 30 games in the league a season. Like, he wanted Maguire at the time. I know, like, look, people have their opinions on Maguire. I think there's still I still think there's a player in there. People might disagree. I think in a certain setup, he might be good enough. Like, there's no secret why he plays well for England, doesn't play well for United. There's different factors. There must be. But look, we'll find that out this season under Ten Hag, whether he can succeed or not. But the jury's out on that one. But like, when you look at the overall situation in terms of all the different managers we've had, let's say in the last decade, post Ferguson, I think David Moyes as well has to be a big example of, like, you have a new CEO, you've new all that, and then he wanted Fabregas, Thiago and all, and he got Fellaini. Like, one man. Like, if you want to talk about not backing a manager, Jesus Christ, like, that was, where do we begin with that? But like, this is where, like, the evolution, the Glazer ownership and Ed Woodward and all this type of stuff is, like, this is where it's brought us back to this and the Arnold situation right now. This is where, like, we have to hope in these footballing decisions in this next 12 to 18 months that we see standard progression. Now, anyone who thinks this transfer window is going to turn United around, you're absolutely bonkers. Look, first of all, I love your optimism. First of all, I love positivity.
Yeah, I'd love to be that thick. It'd be great.
Well, I was going to be a bit nicer there, but like, I'd love to be that optimistic in terms of, like, if we can get all this done in one window and we're back in the top four and we're challenging for the league, brilliant. I'd love that. It's not FIFA.
It's impossible,
that's not going to happen. Like,
no, it's not happening.
I think over these next 12 to 18 months, what we have to expect of Richard Arnold and co and, like, Murtaugh, Fletcher, Ten Hag even as well, is that we see standard progression over 12 to 18 months. I think this first 12 months is about establishing the style of play and finding out what Ten Hag needs. Because we're not going to get all these players out in one window, right? No. Let's be honest. We're not. Players like Rashford and them, they're on their last chance, right, this season. Fair enough. Players like Rashford, Luke Shaw, Maguire, whoever, all these different players, they're on their last chance. If they play well and get back to their best under Ten Hag, brilliant. That's great, right? We've seen how good they were in Solskjaer's second full season, how good them players can be.
Yeah.
But, like, this season's about, number one, Ten Hag getting to know the players. Number two, getting a few of his players in to help gradually implement his style. And number three, like, let's see some more communication from the top. Like, let's see, like, I know Richard Arnold, I know with the whole video thing, will he come back out now and, give more communication? But, like, even, like, with the Manchester United Supporters Trust, I know I called him out a while ago, but, like, let's hope they're more proactive and there's more communication there. Let's hope 1958, continue doing their protests online, not the ground. Like, I'm going to be at the first pre-season game this season, obviously, and consequently, I'm going to be at the Brighton game as well the week later, and obviously, I have a cup season ticket holder, and I was like, a lot more games than I'm usually at, which I go to quite a few in a season. I'm going to be at every single protest that I can be at. Like, I think anyone who's, in, like, whether it's a match-going fan, keep doing the protests. If you're, like, a fan who can't get to the ground as much as you can, do your part online and attack the sponsors. Like, do what you need to do. But at the same time, I think there's all different parts of the football club that definitely everyone needs to start doing their part, and we need to see natural progression. I think, look, these next 12 to 18 months, we need to see that. But again, I emphasized this last night on Twitter, and I'll say it again. Actions need to speak louder than words now. And we do need to see, like, it's all well and good Richard Arnold meeting United fans, buying them all around and telling them what he's going to do. But, like, now we do need to see, can they put that into action? Can they go out and get a De Jong? Can they go out and like get Ericsson on a free? Can they get this unknown gem through their new scouting network now? Can they go out like, and let's say not even go out and buy a player? Can Ten Hag like, you know, bring Palestri in and let's see, give him a chance to see can he do well in the right wing? You know, can he
Alvaro
like
Fernandez? Can he develop
Fernandez, Garnacho? Like, do you know what I mean? Can we see like that natural progression? Like, I want to see us just be brave this season in terms of trying to play the right way, do the right thing, but also at the top of the club that they are setting the standard as well. And look, if it's a case, Reece talking about us finishing 5th, right? I'll tell you this right now. If I see us playing better football, right? If I see us playing football, right? Yeah. If I see us playing better football and we see natural progression, I don't care if we finish outside the top 4 this season. Because I think, like, again, Rome wasn't built in a day, and people say, or Man United, we should be competing at a high level. I absolutely agree with that in terms of principle of this football club. This football club should always be fighting for titles. That's what we're all brought up on. And this football club has a deep history of being very successful. That's absolutely true. But, like, again, no one has a right to success. You have to go out and you have to earn on the football pitch. Over 38 games, over 90 minutes, or whatever trophy. Now, to be fair, you could do circa Liverpool 2005 and just, you know, get absolutely, you know, jammy in the Champions League final. We won't go there on that one. But, like, do you know, like, if you actually, like, you have to earn it. And you have to do things the right way. And that starts from the top. If they're not doing that from the top, then, you know, the manager, the CEO, the director of football, the manager, they're all working with one hand tied behind their back. And I think, look, at the end of the day, needs to be more transparency. But look, I suppose when you look at who's running the club, you'd always have that worry. Will they give the people enough power, enough funds, and enough trust to do what they need to do? And I think that's where...
That's the biggest issue, isn't it?
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue for me. Like, he has to be... The thing is, like, we're going to have to be patient this year as well. And if your predictions are right, Greg, finishing 7th, then it's a case of probably... There's going to be some moans and groans, but... I've already said to you, I mean, a few days ago, Keane, didn't I, that I don't care how bad it gets. Take that off that name now. I don't care how bad it gets. I've never, I'm just like blind as a bat. So you can't say Mackay out after what I achieved anyway, but never mind. I'm not going to that. So, like, that's the thing for me, and I feel like Ten Hag, if you do obviously you guys would have done your research anyway, but if you do your research on the guy, he's very straight to the point. There's no beating around the bush with him. He's going to tell you how it's getting done, and that's it. I mean, there's a good video of him shouting at Noah Lang online, and I love that.
Yeah,
he's just telling him to shut up and follow his instruction, and Noah Lang's a class player, but it's his way or the highway, and I hope he has that approach with the owners as well. And I think you've just got to look at the playing squad now, and it's like you say, you just upgrade, don't you, gradually over the next 3 or 4 windows, and then eventually in 2 seasons' time, we're going to sit here like we're ready to go now. But it's not that simple. Valuation prices, we're going to have to be shrewd in the market. We're going to have to... Because when we were speaking about centre-backs, saying Jose didn't get any, it's because when they was given Lindelof and Bailly, he was expected that, right, well, we've spent money on them now, so that's them for the next 5 years. Don't ask for another one, because we've just bought you them ones. And that comes back to that Americanism again. Yeah, which they weren't good enough. And that happens. And the thing is, like, the club need to understand that sometimes you're going to buy a player, and after 1 season... they're just not cut out for the job. You don't hold on to them for 5 or 6 more seasons and expect a miracle. You replace them because they're not good enough. And it happens, you don't go in the market and buy a £50 million centre-back and expect to have to buy the same player next season. I mean, look at Guardiola with Mendy and players like that. Like he's quite blunt in saying,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean, don't you? He's probably not a very good example from what he's done, but you don't want to buy a £50 million player and then sit there in a season's time with your assistant manager saying, well, we got that one wrong. We're going to have to sort of maybe go back in the market for another £50 million player. The owners are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. Well, that's your fault. And another one, when you were saying about Palestri as well, Keane, like, players don't necessarily get better at Man U. That's what I want to see with Ten Hag in charge. I want to see Hannibal in getting a better, like getting a solid foundation to build on for a young player. I want to see Pellistri given a chance. Is he good enough, or is he one that we're going to have to take a hit on because he isn't quite what we thought he was, and stuff like that. And I feel like that's the only way we're going to progress. And the media will hound us anyway. If we get beat by Brighton, it's going to be all doom and gloom. Do you know what I mean? But that we've got to look at the bigger picture. And the one thing for me that's given me...
You have Carragher on Sky saying, well, Jurgen Klopp did this in season 1, season 2.
Klopp's a perfect example, though, isn't he? Like, look what he done with Liverpool. He couldn't sign a whole brand new team. He had to break it up over seasons, and they've been very successful now, but it's took them a long time. I remember, like, after season 4, Liverpool fans asking for Klopp's head. Do you know what I mean? And you look at them now and you think that was crazy when you look back on it, when he was trying to make, like, the Spanish Moreno, he was playing him in his system, and you knew he wasn't good enough to play that role, but he kind of had to just stick with it for a season, and then he brought in Robinson, and it got better in each area of the pitch, and that's what we're going to have to do. It's going to be slow, it's going to be difficult, it's probably going to be quite hard sometimes, but when you've got an elite manager, you've got to trust the process, and I feel like that's what we've got to do. Whatever his contract length is, we've got to stick with him, no matter how bad it gets. As long as we don't get relegated, we've got to stick with the plan and hope that it comes through, and he's a top coach. Do you know what I mean? And we've got to buy into the fact that we do have, and this is the only thing why I'm so optimistic when I talk about the manager, is he's a world-class manager. Do you know what I mean? Whether he's going to look like a world-class manager in season 1 and 2, I don't know, because he ain't going to have the squad. But eventually he's going to get the squad, and hopefully better times are coming, because it can't get much worse, can it?
No, that's true.
And I think on that, we'll wrap it up on that, because I think, can it get much worse? Look, it remains to be seen. We'll see next season. And look, we will be talking about more in this podcast about next season in terms of plans and stuff like that. And we'll wrap up the podcast there, but just to let everyone know, I actually will be back tomorrow, and just after 8 o'clock tomorrow. Myself and journalist Dale O'Donnell of Stretty News will be on the podcast tomorrow. We'll be talking more about the transfer window, in terms of ins, outs, and potential targets as well. So we will be talking about that tomorrow, live about, slightly about 8:15 tomorrow, which should say. We will be myself and Dale will be discussing transfers as well as other topics as well. And don't forget, guys, to hit like in the video, and if you like what you're listening to the guys here tonight chatting, do hit the subscribe as well. I do appreciate everyone's support. As always, look, we will continue to be dropping more not just United podcasts, but we're talking more about the Premier League as well. We'll talk the league podcast starting back soon as well. Matt will be hosting that, and he will have his own guests on there as well. But thanks very much for everyone who's listening live or will be listening later. And, look, I hope you all have a rest of Goodyear Sunday. Hopefully Love Island is not disappointing anyone this evening. And look, I hope you all have a nice week. And look, let's hope there's more positive times for Man United ahead. But until then, guys, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in a while.